What's the most manipulative thing your mother-in-law ever did to you? My mother-in-law Helga had been undermining my marriage since day one. She kept photos of my husband's ex-girlfriend Dakota in her living room for the first 3 years we were married. She would accidentally call me by Dakota's name at every family gathering. She told everyone at our wedding that she hoped her son would realize his mistake soon. My husband Zach always made excuses for her behavior and said she just needed time to adjust. Everything changed when I got pregnant with our first child. Helga suddenly became the perfect mother-in-law overnight. She threw me a beautiful baby shower and bought the most expensive items on our registry. She drove me to prenatal appointments when Zach had to work. She even apologized for how she'd treated me and said the baby had changed her perspective on everything. I was suspicious at first, but pregnancy hormones made me emotional and desperate for family support. Zach and I had chosen the name Ember Rose months before the birth. Ember was after my grandmother, who raised me after my parents died in a car accident. Rose was from Zach's favorite aunt who had passed away from breast cancer. We told everyone the name, and Helga seemed genuinely touched by our choice. She even bought a personalized baby blanket with Ember Rose embroidered in pink letters. The birth turned into an emergency when the baby's heart rate dropped during labor. I needed an emergency C-section and lost a lot of blood during the procedure. I was barely conscious for 2 days while they monitored me for complications. Zach was torn between staying with me and checking on our daughter in the NICU. Helga stepped up and offered to handle all the paperwork since we were overwhelmed. She brought me flowers every day and held my hand while I recovered. She showed us the birth certificate application she'd filled out with all the correct information. Everything looked perfect with Ember Rose written clearly in the name section. She insisted on submitting it herself to save us the trouble during such a stressful time. Zach was so grateful that his mother was finally being supportive. I was too exhausted to question anything and just wanted to focus on getting healthy enough to hold my baby properly. 6 months passed in a blur of sleepless nights and first smiles. Helga visited weekly and seemed like a devoted grandmother. She bought designer clothes and professional photos every month. I started to believe that becoming a grandmother had genuinely changed her attitude toward me. Zach was thrilled that our family was finally coming together. We even started planning a trip to visit his relatives across the country. That's when everything fell apart. We went to apply for the baby's passport at the post office. The clerk looked at our documents and frowned before saying there was a problem. She showed us the official birth certificate that had just arrived from the state records office. My hand started shaking when I read the name. Helga Dakota was listed as our daughter's legal name. Not Ember Rose like we'd chosen, but Helga after my mother-in-law and Dakota after my husband's ex-girlfriend. Zach grabbed the paper and read it 3 times before looking at me in complete shock. I called Helga immediately while trying not to scream in the middle of the post office. She answered cheerfully and asked how her granddaughter Helga was doing today. When I confronted her about the birth certificate, she went quiet before saying she thought we'd agreed to honor both her and Dakota. She claimed I'd told her to change it during my recovery when I was heavily medicated. We drove straight to her house where she finally admitted the truth. She'd been planning it since the day we announced the pregnancy. She showed us a notebook where she'd researched the legal process and time limits for contesting birth certificates. She knew we'd have a narrow window to fix it and that it would cost thousands of dollars we didn't have. She cried about how her mother Helga had died when she was young and she couldn't let the name disappear. She said Dakota would have been a better wife and mother than I ever could be. Zach finally saw his mother clearly for the first time in his life. He told her she was dead to him and we left immediately. The legal battle took 14 months and cost $8,000 we had to borrow from my sister. Every document from the first year of our daughter's life has the wrong name. Her pediatrician records her social security card and even her baptism certificate all say Helga Dakota. The judge eventually ruled in our favor, but the damage was permanent. My daughter's first birthday cake said Helga because the baker used her legal documents. Every milestone was tainted by this betrayal. Helga still sends birthday cards addressed to Helga Dakota just to twist the knife. Some wounds never heal even when you win in court.